Welcome, everyone, to the Boiling Point podcast. This is episode 58. I can't believe we're already to 58. I am your host, JD, and I have a very special new guest for all you viewers out there. My cousin, and he is also active military, Sergeant Tyler Solomon. He's with the 82nd Airborne. That's correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. He's with the 82nd Airborne. He is still active military. He's going to be out in a couple of weeks, month or two. But how long have you been serving, Tyler?
By the time I'm all done, it'll be 6 years total.
6 years total. So you've been going on 6 years. How many tours have you had?
I did one tour where we were based in Kuwait, and I was in and out of Saudi Arabia, and, off the coast of Iraq, and then I just got back recently from Afghanistan.
Okay, from Afghanistan. Now, we're not going to talk too much about Afghanistan because you are still active, and we certainly don't want to get you into any trouble with anybody. Talk about your experiences traveling through all those countries in the Middle East. I'm sure, being in combat, that's never a good thing, but seeing the scenery and stuff, seeing the world a little bit had to have been nice.
Yeah, it was. Honestly, it's a culture shock too, because we get so used to being in America, and then like this is the way things are. And then like the first place I landed was Germany, and I was just taken back just by the way things were built, the way things are, like the hotel was different, like nothing was the same.
Yeah, I would imagine traveling and seeing some of those places would give you a little bit of a culture shock. The way American culture is, we don't have a lot of outside influences within the borders. We have to leave to see places. So I'm sure that was quite interesting going to see all the different locations and just seeing all the different, like you said, the architecture, the building structures, how towns are laid out. I'm sure it's all different in other parts of the world as opposed to here. So you signed up for the military. How old were you?
When I signed, I was 18.
18. So right after high school, you went right in.
I was young in high school, so I worked in 7, 8 months, and then I just was like, yeah, I'll join the army.
Yeah. Well, that's, there's nothing wrong with serving the country. I hope that did play something in addition to, being able to get opportunities and stuff from the armed forces. I'm hoping that it came from you wanted to serve as well, obviously.
It did.
So now with visiting all these places, have you been in a like a forward combat area or situation?
Yeah, so like I said, I've just recently got back from Afghanistan, and because I fly on helicopters,
Okay.
I'm a flight engineer on CH-47 helicopters. I get to see a lot more than most people do, especially because I'm in the air and we can move a lot faster and cover a lot more ground.
Yeah, I probably should have asked you what you actually do in the Army. That would have been a great question. Thanks for picking up my slack on that one.
Here,
So what do you fly personnel or supplies?
both. So imagine a semi truck that flies around. That's what we do.
Okay.
So we carry everything from up to 50-ish people, depending on if we need that many or not. Like the standard is like 32 people that we can fly comfortably to include the crew members. And then we fly pallets full of ammunition, water, office supplies, whatever the mission dictates. I can also fit certain types of vehicles inside, as well as sling load via big ropes from the bottom on separate hooks, vehicles, and cargo nets full of additional supplies and everything else to certain locations and drop them off.
So you fly one of the big boys then, one of the big choppers, not like an Apache or a Black Hawk or something. You fly the big sons of bitches.
Yeah, the biggest and the fastest.
Nice. Okay. I didn't know it was the fastest. So I got to learn something new just then. So you get to drive, you drop off people, equipment, wherever they need to go. And I assume you bring people back then also when they need to come back.
Yes, sir.
You just served in Afghanistan. How is Afghanistan? Let's not, let's not get too much into the political issues or the pullout or anything like that right now. But what was, talk about the people there, the people that you met, and the just the scenery. What's Afghanistan like?
Yeah, so initially, I had mentioned I went to Kuwait like a year or two before that, and going to Afghanistan, I was thinking, oh, it's going to be super hot. It's going to be the same thing, like just dusty and hot with the mountains involved. And when I got there, I was actually kind of surprised. We got there, and it was the end of spring, beginning of summer, and I was like, temperature is nice. I mean, it's like 80 degrees, but there's next to no humidity. So 80 degrees feels like our 65-ish almost. I was like,
Oh,
man,
wow.
I miss, yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. So it was nice weather
And
at least. Go ahead.
yeah, the elevation also plays a factor in it, obviously, because we're higher above sea level. So
Afghanistan's higher above sea level, or we are?
Afghanistan is.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure, so that's why I deferred to your judgment on that one. So you serving your country, I assume that I hope that you get pride from that, right? Like you do it because you want to serve the country.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's initially what I signed up for. I mean, there are a lot of other great benefits that I didn't even know would be provided to me, especially in the job field. I picked that are definitely great incentives, but I that's what I initially signed up for, and what I still enjoy doing today.
Yes, I think that's great. I think all service members, all men and women, should be honored, and they should be honored more than they are in this country, in my opinion. You don't have to weigh in on that, but I think that they should be. I think every time soldiers who serve overseas return home, I think they should be thrown a parade, a carnival, whatever. I think there should be a huge celebration anytime we bring soldiers home from overseas after serving. Especially in a conflict zone, because that can't be easy, not just for your family but for yourselves as well. But I'm sure it's hard on the family. You do have a family, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. I have a lovely wife. We've been married almost 5 years now, and I have a daughter who's about to be 4, and a son that just turned 7 months old.
7 months old and 4. Wow. Yeah, so you got brand new starting out. 4 is always a great age. That's usually when they start talking back. um, but yeah, so are you timing your plan, your time leaving the army? Does that have anything to do with the way your family has developed? Is it because now you have 2 children? One is very young, and you want to spend more time at home. Does that have any?
And it's part of it. Believe it or not, honestly, in the military, you do get a lot of time at home, but at the same time, you also get not a lot of time at home. It's a mixed bag. Kind of there's hours. Like I'm on a 4 day weekend. Tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. So that's nice because I'm here. But obviously, if I was deployed or there was a training exercise going on, I wouldn't be able to partake in this 4 day weekend. I'd have to be working.
Okay, now you broke up a little bit while you were saying that. I want to make sure everybody heard it. You said right now you're not being deployed or anything, so you have a couple days off in a row, and that's nice because you get to spend it with your family, or at least evenings with your families, even if you're working or doing something during the day. But talk about when you're on deployment, when you are shipped overseas. How often do you get to come home and see your family then?
Actually, between both of my deployments, I didn't get any time to come home, and partially because we weren't there for extended amount of time. Both times, uh, so every contact I had with them was kind of like me and you were talking right now. It's all via face chat and everything else.
Okay. Does that have anything to do with the COVID situation, or is that just how the military communicates easiest?
Well, yeah, I mean, COVID yeah, was part of it because getting flights in and out of countries was harder unless it was emergency situations. So it was something the Army was trying to mitigate the spread and all that. But then, yeah, it is just easier for me to contact somebody just like me and you are talking right now.
Did you get opportunity when you were overseas deployed to Skype with your family?
Oh yes, yes. Honestly, because I'm a pampered aviation guy, we stay on the bigger fobs, so there generally is some kind of internet system and already set up. So yeah, just about every night I could have had the option to, as long as I wasn't flying or something crazy wasn't happening.
Yeah, and that's nice that you got to at least talk to them then. I mean, Skype is certainly not, being with your family, but it is nice that you at least got to see them and talk to them. That's good that they give you that ability to do that, to still call home and talk and see your family and stuff, even when they can't bring you home. So you served in Kuwait, Iraq, Afghanistan. In terms of weather or climate, architecture, if you wanted to take a vacation in one of these countries, assuming that there weren't problems, and assuming it was a place you could visit for a vacation, would you return to any of these countries to visit as a vacation?
Uh, I don't think so. If I had to pick one, considering there's not hostile or anything like that, think I'd pick Kuwait just because there's more infrastructure, there's more stuff to do, if you will, and it's close to the ocean or the Persian Gulf, so you can get to the water easier.
Okay, okay, good. So I didn't mean to laugh at you there. It's just funny that you didn't want it. You're like, no, not really.
But I never went back. I'd be okay with that.
That's okay. Okay, good enough then. So your vacation spots are going to be reserved for tropical islands, I would imagine. Just not overseas,
Yeah.
not where you've been serving. So that's good. All right. So I'm trying to think of some other stuff that I want to talk to you about here. That's not going to be too. I don't want you to step in any shit, as I said before, with your officers and stuff. I don't want. We certainly don't want to get you in trouble, being that you're almost going to be out. So, well, when's the last time you were in Afghanistan?
Uh, the end of June.
The end of
That's when.
June. Okay, so coincidentally, that's when some things were happening around there. So you were a part of the pullout. Can you answer that?
Yeah, yes, I was.
Okay. All right. All right. Now, like I said, I don't want to. We're not going to talk about the specifics or particulars. We're not going to get into foreign policy or anything. So I don't want you to. I'm not going to ask you too much about your personal opinions on the pullout itself. Um, Let me think. If you correct me if I'm wrong, but it is normally standard military operation to that usually equipment goes first and then personnel is last. And in the instance that equipment can't be taken, it's usually handled by explosives.
Yes,
Okay, so
usually the
usually.
common.
Yes. Okay. That's what I thought so. I just wanted to clarify if that was the and that's the extent of as clever as I'm going to get. So let's shift it to somewhere else. You were in Iraq and Kuwait. Do you feel the missions there were successful that you were when you were there doing your work?
What we were told to accomplish, yes.
Okay.
We were told, hey, this is what you're going to be doing today. This is what needs to get done because they told us to. And in our small view of the whole big picture, we were getting what we needed to get accomplished, and that was the end of it. Now, on the grand scheme of things, yeah, I have my own opinions about that, but
And
again, I
like I
don't.
said, we'll save those for once you're out. Early next year or something. We'll have you back on the podcast for like a Tyler Solomon reveals all kind of podcast if you want. Where you can actually open up about
Different
it.
than you're
Yep.
thinking, like normal style. So because it's like it goes kind of like this. So there's the pilot in command, and then there's the additional pilot, and then there's the flight engineer, which is the position I'm in, and there's
Okay.
the crew chief, and that's a normal flying crew. And like I said, the pilot command obviously is the final end all be all. He's the go or no go, and then the other pilot is almost in the same boat because he's an officer, whether it be one officer or a regular officer. And then the most senior ranking crew member is the flight engineer, whether he actually outranks the other people or not, just because he's in that designated position makes him the leader.
Okay. Okay. That's definitely good to know. Yeah, I didn't know how aviation. I knew aviation was different than ground forces, but I wasn't I didn't know to the extent. So that's very interesting. So when you say officers, you mean like commissioned officers, right? Because you would be, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you being a sergeant would be an NCO, a non-commissioned officer.
Correct. But we also have warrant officers, and it's this gray area the Army created to pretty much fill officer positions, in my opinion. This is my opinion here, without paying officer rates. Because a warrant officer is in their field. So obviously a warrant officer pilot is primarily focused on being a pilot.
Okay, so they, in your opinion, what you were saying there is that they kind of added a rank so that they didn't have to make people commissioned officers.
Right, and I probably catch some slack for that one, but yeah, that's my opinion, and other people that I work with that are warrant officers feel the same way about it.
Okay, well that's good. That's good to know. And I didn't even know that there was like a warrant officer rank within the military. So that's interesting. Hopefully you don't catch too much flack. While I like to think my podcast is good and people enjoy it. It's not like we don't have tens of thousands or millions of viewers yet. Soon, but not yet. Yeah, exactly. Now you decided. I assume you're a sergeant, which means you worked your way up. You didn't just start as a sergeant. You were a private and so forth, and worked your way up to become an NCO. Did you have the option to become an officer if you wanted it, or is that something that someone else decides?
I would have the option. Now it would require me to go through a Green to Gold program, which takes you from enlisted, go through officer candidate school, and then eventually you commission. And I'm kind of ignorant to all the process to it, but that's kind of the gist of it. So yes, I nothing's holding me back from being an officer but me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's just you obviously are planning your future in a different direction than becoming an officer or a career military guy, which there's nothing wrong with. Not everybody who signs up for the military has to go career. Some of the people who have gone career probably shouldn't still be there now. And if you want my opinion, you don't have to weigh in, but I will because I'm allowed. That's the great thing is that I understand completely that you need to be careful. You're active and that's very important. You got to be careful what you say, of course. But I'm not active military and I can say whatever the hell I want on my podcast.
That's right.
Yeah. So now let's talk. You were talking about how you have like a very narrow focus because you talked about when I asked you about getting things accomplished in Iraq and did you guys get accomplished what you wanted to accomplish? You kind of gave two answers a little bit, and I want to talk about that because I think it's important that people understand that you being a sergeant, a pilot, you have a very narrow focus. You don't look at the whole scheme. You don't look at the whole plan of attack. That's not your job. Your job is to fly the missions that they tell you to and accomplish what they need you to accomplish. Being a pilot. And that's for everybody, right? Like that's not just, that's for everybody. The soldiers have a very narrow focus, whereas the officers, the generals and so forth are supposed to have a more broad scope.
Right. And I don't mean to step on your toes, but I'm not a pilot, unfortunately, because you get paid a lot more money than I do to do half the work. Yeah, so I'm actually a flight engineer. My primary job.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my primary job is to make sure everything that happens in the back portion of the helicopter, whether it be personnel coming on board or off board, the load and cargo, the sling load, the maintenance of the helicopter too. That's another one of my primary jobs is making sure the helicopter can fly every day. That's where my job focus is. And then additionally, the people that shoot the guns out the window, yeah, that's also me. That's probably.
Oh, okay. So you get to shoot the guns out the window too. That's nice. All right. So you're an engineer, a flight engineer.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I want to make sure I get that right. All right. So, but that's even the case right there. As a flight engineer, you have a very narrow scope. Chopper maintenance. If you're under fire, then returning fire, making sure you pick up equipment or drop off equipment effectively. Whereas it's the pilot's job to make sure the helicopter stays in the air, as well as his other responsibilities and everything that he's checking. And that's the way the Army works. Everybody has a specific job to do. It's not your job. It's not the pilot's job. It's not the soldier's job that's standing on the ground with them to worry about the big scheme, the wider scheme. They have very specific tasks, very specific jobs that they have to accomplish.
Right.
And I think that's important. Go ahead.
I think that's where it comes down, where the officers become involved, especially the higher ranking they get. They're the ones that are not so much worried about making sure the helicopter works, because they got me for that. They're like, all right, well, you're taking care of that. Their job is to sit back, not necessarily in an office, but in a designated workspace, and be like, okay, well, this is what the field of battle looks like. We need to move these pieces here for that reason. And that's what they do. And all I'm getting below that is trickling down to, hey, we need you to go here and do this. So I do it.
Yes, and I think that's important that everybody understands that the soldiers are not only they're not permitted, but they're not even given information outside the purview of what the task is that they need completed. Right? When they send you on a mission, they tell you this is what we need you to do. They're not telling you why they need it done. They're not telling you, anything else. They're just saying, hey, we need this done, and it's your job to execute it.
Yep, that's pretty much the grand scheme of it.
Yep. All right. Well, then that's that, and I think that's important that people understand that soldiers are not permitted, and they don't get to make some of the decisions. The people on the ground aren't the ones making decisions necessarily. It's the officers and the higher up, the generals, the colonels, the majors, and so forth that make more decisions, and that you guys are just asked to carry out the jobs that are required of you.
Pretty much, yep.
Yeah. Some people don't know that. Some people think that because you're a soldier and you're on the ground that you can just, have sway and completely affect foreign policy. But that's not the way it is.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what Sergeant Major said this, but I saw a video on it, and excuse me for my ignorance, but it was something like, this one's not on the suits. Because the boots, being me, have nothing to do with what it's all about. The people wearing suits that are making the decisions.
Yep. The boots on the ground are just the guys executing the plan that was decided. They're not deciding the plans. Of course, you guys make decisions on the ground, but within the confines of what your primary objective is.
Right.
And I think that's important too. It is important to have a military that works like that. You can't have every soldier, every private, corporal, or sergeant questioning the orders given from those above them. That's chaos. That's what we have in this country right now in the civilian side of things. So, I think it's important that people understand that. And it's great. It's been great talking to you and learning about what you do and learning about some of the stuff about the military that I didn't even know. I definitely got to learn some new stuff tonight as well. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about or bring up?
If we're talking about not so much the foreign policy or the pulling out thing, when it comes down to the veterans that served before me, the people that have deployed way more than I have that are still currently, all those people, like, if you know anybody, person like that, whether it's your grandfather, your brother's friend, anybody personally, I would just say, just get in contact with them, because I know a lot of them, especially the ones that are out, that I know personally, just have this sense of like worthlessness almost. Not all of them, but just.
That's, let's talk about that then for a second before we wrap up. Because soldiers returning home and reacclimating into real life is a real problem that we have sometimes in this country. Some of the soldiers can't come back and get back to normal lives where they're going to a 9-to-5 job. It's hard to do that after walking around with an M4 and having bullets whizzing past your head.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
honestly, I wish I could explain more, but you can't understand it until you've done it. Like you, I thought I knew about it because I'm like, oh, I'm active duty, blah blah blah. But until it happened to me, I was like, yeah, I had no idea what I was talking about.
Yeah. Now, are there services? There are places out there where soldiers can get some help. Not as much as they should. That's certainly something we could talk about on a future podcast if you'd like. Is how the VA is not necessarily taking care of the soldiers the way that they should be, or maybe not the VA. Maybe it's just the higher ups, the country as a whole, and how they treat their returning veterans, and that they're not treated the way they should be. At least in my opinion. Like I said, I think anybody who serves overseas should be receiving the hero's welcome when they get home carnival. They should already have a job lined up and services at their disposal the minute they step off the plane. That's my opinion about it. Because anybody who's willing to go and serve in a hostile combat situation, like you said, there's no way for someone to know until you've actually been there and done that. There's absolutely no way that I could know what it's like to be flying in a helicopter that's under fire. That's impossible for me to know. It's impossible for me to know what it's like to sleep in a foxhole in the freezing cold. I have never done it, so how would I know? It's impossible for us here back at home to know what it is you guys go through when you're serving overseas. And that's one thing that I think that we lack in this country is services for the soldiers to reacclimate into normal lives. Because you can't. That's asking a lot. That's asking a lot of somebody to go shoot at people and kill people potentially, and then just come home and, oh, now you're going to work at the grocery store and bag groceries. Like that's not a transition, that's just, oh, you're back. Well, here you go. That's, what I mean? I think there should be more services and there should be much more honor in soldiers and stuff returning home. I don't know if you would agree with that or not.
I can agree. I agree and disagree at the same time. Again, that's something I should save for
a future episode. Absolutely, that's what I'm saying. So yeah, like I said, I'm not trying to get you into any trouble. I just wanted to do this episode because I want to try and get new guests on the podcast, and that's why I just wanted to talk about you personally, so people can get to know you. This is Sergeant Tyler Solomon of the 82nd Airborne, and he is active military. He's just one story. He's just one guy out of hundreds of thousands, millions of people who serve this country in uniform. And this is just one story. Go and, look up some other stories, especially some of the recent losses we've just had in Afghanistan. We're still losing soldiers. We're still losing people. Go and look them up. Remember their names. At least, go look and see what their names were, the people who have died to provide you with the freedom. Send a care package through the USO. There's lots of ways that you can get involved to support the military. There's lots of ways. And I encourage everyone who's seeing this to go do that. Go get involved. Send a care package, write a check, send a letter to someone who is serving in uniform overseas. That's what they need. They need love and support from the people here at home, the people whose freedom that they're protecting. And sometimes we fall short in returning that kind of the kind of respect that you guys give serving overseas, protecting our freedom. Sometimes when you guys get back, we fall short in the return home of our warriors, So if you have nothing else, Tyler, then we'll save the good stuff for a future episode. And I can't wait to have you on again. It was a lot of fun to talk with you and to get to know you and a little bit more about what you do now. We are family, but he lives in Virginia and I live in Pennsylvania. We don't get to see or talk to each other very often. So it was also nice on a personal level to have the chance to have this conversation with you. Tell the family that their Uncle JD says hello. And hopefully maybe someday I can get down there to see you guys, or if not, maybe you guys can come on up here and see us.
All right.
All right. Well, this has been episode 58. Did I say of the Boiling Point podcast? Yes, episode 58 of the Boiling Point podcast. Sergeant Tyler Solomon, active military, still serving our country even as we speak right now on this podcast. So get involved. Send a letter. Send a package. help out the armed forces and help out soldiers who are here at home. You can also get involved with soldiers who are here at home as well. Marcus Frederiksen is going to play us out. Please comment, like, share the podcast. That's what we need most right now, everybody, is for you to share out the episode so that we can try and reach more people so that we can continue to grow our audience. That's the only way we're going to continue to grow at this point is we need to just grow the audience and get some more viewers. So please comment, like, share. You can also check out our storefront if you would like to go beyond that at bonfire.com/store/The Boiling Point Podcast. That's all in lowercase. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Boiling Point Podcast, also in lowercase. We're on Parler at The Boiling Point Podcast. And of course, if you're watching this, then you already know about our Rumble station, which, guess what? It's called The Boiling Point Podcast. So, Tyler Solomon, thanks so much for your time. It was great to have you on. I can't wait to do it again. I am your host, JD, and that's the end.
Love is strong. It lasts so long. It just goes on for eternity. And now you've won through your son the greatest gift. So did we.